breaking developments related to the rapidly escalating fraud scandal that's enveloping Minnesota and threatening to bring down the regime of embattled Governor Tim Walz. Yeah, the future is looking bleak for a guy we call two-term Tim. Just moments ago, the Trump administration announcing that a special team of federal experts is now on their way to Minneapolis in order to thoroughly examine and dissect each and every aspect of that state's federally sponsored welfare system. Sounds fair to me. Officials say the Labor Department is dispatching a highly skilled unemployment insurance strike team to thoroughly investigate the situation and figure out exactly where the fraud is still taking place. For her part, our nation's labor secretary says that fortunately, federal authorities still have the enforcement capabilities to target organized crime, and that following the recent discoveries of widespread thievery in Minnesota, that's exactly what they're planning to do. Open up and take a look at the books. For starters, she says her department has already sent a warning letter to Walz's employment department, letting them know that her agency has been receiving a number of recent reports concerning issues which could compromise the integrity of the state's unemployment insurance program. She also points out that her agency's targeted review will focus on alleged discoveries they've made within the state's child nutrition, early development, and housing stability programs, all of which contributed to our nation's largest COVID-19 fraud case. The Labor Secretary goes on to warn that any type of waste, fraud, or abuse simply will not be tolerated by the Trump administration, that she's appalled by what she's hearing, I am as well, and that she's confident the strike team will soon get to the bottom of it. Meanwhile, things just keep getting worse for Governor Walz, with a new state audit concluding that his administration's oversight was tremendously inadequate and that its failures created massive opportunities for fraud. In particular, the audit shows an extraordinary 3,000% spike in payouts during the pandemic, which are directly related to the state's massive Feeding Our Future scam. It also reveals that despite a number of very obvious red flags, applications for assistance sailed right on through. Complaints totally ignored, and the nonprofit just kept on growing. Making matters worse, Minnesota taxpayers are now on the hook for an extremely expensive cleanup effort, essentially forcing them to pay twice for the mistakes made by Governor Walz. And by the way, calling what he's done a mistake is being kind of generous, and I think it's a little bit more than that. And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, when your state is so overwhelmed by fraud that the federal government has to step in and give you a checkup from the neck up, then you might be an abject failure. Hey, Governor Timbo, this is your life, and you'd do well to read between the lines, as the walls, Mr. Walz, are about to come crumbling down. This won't be pretty. Here's the deal. The unchecked fraud which has happened under the leadership of Minnesota's governor has got the attention of all honest, hardworking, tax-paying Minnesotans, Americans all across the country as well. And even this guy, the president of the United States, is fed up with all that Governor Tim, the Timinator, is up to. And by the way, Editor Pranov, if we have it, can we have a shot of the now legendary Timinator? Government funds intended to feed children, provide health care and housing for those in need, and more have reportedly ended up in the wrong hands. And there's absolutely no excuse for this. Here's the bottom line. Crime is easy to commit, and oftentimes you can get away with it for a while. But just like John Lennon said all those years ago, yeah, instant karma, it's going to get you, going to knock you right in the head. Now, producer Davey, the whole world, they're onto the scam. And would you agree that this guy needs what we call a gubernatorial timeout?
Well, look, Bill, he's not going anywhere before next year's election, but he's clearly under fire. And if he doesn't change the narrative soon, he's going to have a tough time getting elected to a third term.
Yeah, he can change anything he wants, but there's no way Minnesotans are bringing that guy back for term 3. As the news roundupper in charge, by the way, I hereby demand that any and all misappropriated funds be paid back in full, also with interest and penalties. And I say that post haste. Governor Timmy, show us that money.